we're short a producer now.
Douglas. There he is.
He forgets to bring himself in, for God's sake. What's going on here?
Every single week, man.
Jeez.
Every single week.
Keep the first one back on.
Happy Tuesday, boys.
Oh,
what's going on, everybody?
Sorry I missed last week. I kind of it looked like it was a pretty lively time last week.
Yeah, that was fun. A lot of dog talk.
I like dog talk. I like dogs.
Some good questions.
Those are two of the coolest people on to talk about them too. I'm surprised anybody else got to talk other than Tracy. I was a little concerned about that.
I tried to steer that a little bit, so it helped.
Sure,
it did.
Sure,
but
yeah.
You probably didn't watch it on rerun, but I said those are my two oldest friends in NAVDA are women, and I've seen both of them in their bra.
He was sleeping both times it happened.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he went on to explain how they both happened, and
right.
It was
it wasn't like
it all made sense.
Sure.
It wasn't like I asked them to do it.
I was down by the Missouri River, and I could hear the women tuning out as Ron started talking. So, yeah.
Judging by the
comments. Nick,
I was gonna say, it looks like we're going to be short a bunch of people today.
I see that.
Are we?
Yeah, we had some people coming in, checking in early just to let us know they're not going to be here watching. Which that's considerate.
That is considerate, man. That's
at
very
the trap
nice
range, though. At the trap range, that's important too.
Yeah, especially with the time of year being.
Yeah, I suppose. Larson, we should probably let you introduce our guest tonight since you've known him longer than anybody else on here.
I suppose I could do that. Yeah, we're very excited to be joined by not only just somebody from one of our favorite conservation organizations, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, but a fellow high school alum of mine, Duluth East graduate. We grew up in the same town, met each other through high school, and we weren't like best buddies, like growing up down the street from each other, but where Jared and I came together in high school was in the rough grouse woods of northern Minnesota, and that's kind of how our friendship started, and we've known each other ever since. And we're happy to have you on, Jared. Thanks for joining us, man.
You bet. Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here. I know it's a little bit short notice, but I'm happy to be here, and I think I've connected with just about everybody on the screen here at one time or another at Pheasant Fest or elsewhere, and we all share a similar passion for bird dogs and upland hunting. So yeah, I'm extremely happy to be here tonight.
So just as a little warning, we are absolutely going to ask for a couple of embarrassing Nick Larson stories from high school down the road. That's going to happen for sure.
And Jared, you're in two different places. You're both in Minnesota. You can totally make it up.
Yeah.
yeah. We don't even care if it's true or not.
Go with the flow.
Yeah.
Give us a wink and we'll have Doug mute Nick so he can't refute it, and we'll drop him out. And we can just tell us all kinds of stuff.
Go ahead.
Here we go. Perfect. Just like that. So, one of the things that I was really excited I reached out to Jared yesterday because, well, first of all, let's face it, me and Ron are not the most organized of people, and we kind of forgot to book anybody for this week.
Let's also face it, it's not our job. It's Doug's show.
Sure. Yeah. We're
just remember that when all the big paychecks of 40 cents a week come through from royalties.
I am sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron and Nick, but some of the questions that I've been getting the most in the last couple of weeks have been about bird numbers and production of birds. Everybody seems like they're getting really, really excited for hunting season because we can kind of see the finish line coming up here, or the starting line, I guess, not the finish line. And so we figured that I sent Jared a message and asked if he'd come on, and figured we could kind of do almost like a state-by-state tour of bird country for both pheasants and for quail. And so hopefully Jared did some boning up on bird numbers this afternoon at work and was getting paid for it, because we're gonna be trying to run around the country here and see where people should be spending some time this fall.
That was my entire day, is trying to get anecdotal stories from folks. So we're good to go.
most of the roadside surveys, like North Dakota does roadside surveys. Drink for those of you who are waiting for me to say something. It took me 6 minutes about North Dakota, but our roadside surveys usually don't come out until like the very end of August or the very first part of September. But between I'm sure Pheasants Forever, Jared, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you guys get a lot of reports from your guys' chapters around the country just on how the winters were and how the rains during the critical times of the year were and stuff like that. So, I mean, this isn't going to be the end-all be-all of what the bird numbers are going to be for sure, but it's going to be a pretty damn good guess, right?
Yep. So, roadside counts are really the meter by what we go by to see what populations are doing, population dynamics from one year to the next. But anecdotal stories from across pheasant and quail country right now are pretty damn good. Everything I've got, I had to print some of this off today because I couldn't remember all of it. Normally, when I help with the forecast, I can riddle it right off the top of my head, but for short notice here, I just went and got a bunch of anecdotal stories and shorts from some of our biologists, our field staff, even some agency Upland biologists, and things are looking really, really good. And like you said, I mean, precipitation and weather and habitat all together really control pheasant and quail populations across the range. When we have easy winters and normal weather in the spring, not really wet, not really dry, but just average, the birds respond, and that's what it looks like they did this year.
Perfect. Yeah. Wait, I
got to interrupt one thing. I wrote a note down when you were talking, Tyler, before Jared's very lucid answer. The reason the roadside surveys don't come out in North Dakota is because back in the day, the Webster family road hunting crew took full advantage. They backed it up.
I'll tell you right now. Back in the old days, the Webster family roadside survey of the road hunters, they wouldn't have told you any truths at all. It would have all been lies. If you would have gone by what those guys said, we wouldn't have had a bird in North Dakota since 1944. All right, so let's not believe that at all. Like, I get that question a lot. They're like, "Hey, do you do the roadside surveys with the U.S. Postal Service?" And I'm like, fuck no, I don't, because I would lie out of my ass. There's no way I would be true on that. But good one, Ron. I appreciate it.
I thought so. You tried to back out of it, but you were nailed.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get back on it. Sorry.
So, I'm going to throw you just kind of a question that I don't know if you know this or not, but like, what is the X factor? Like, is there a certain I'm sure that it's going to move a little bit for a region of the country, and for let's talk pheasants first, because that's kind of what's coming up first. Is there what would be the peak nesting season, and what would dictate a good nesting season?
Mid-April through mid-June, and every that'd be the kind of the peak nesting season. Obviously, it goes into July. But like we saw this year, we had early broods and big broods on the ground. A lot of them, from what I'm seeing from the reports we're going to go over, a lot of them are close to being full grown already, which is great. But across the pheasant range, it really differs. When you get up into there's some arid regions of Montana and North Dakota, obviously South Dakota too, where rain or lack thereof really controls their populations. And the same would be for bob whites. You can basically just follow the rain maps down in their range in Oklahoma and Texas. And when they have a good year, it's because they've had enough moisture to make enough bugs throughout the hot season.
Sure. Well, dealer's choice there, Jared. What region of the country would you like to start with? You want to start where you and Nick are at there in Minnesota, and we can start working our way out from there?
Yeah, a lot of us are from the Midwest, so why don't we start there? Minnesota is a good region to talk about. We've got I think 17 Farm Bill biologist staff. We've got 2 regional reps here. We've got 73 chapters right now, I believe, and all of them are seeing a lot of birds. And I can tell you, one of the projects we're working on right now is a public lands map at Pheasants Forever. That's going to start in the state of Minnesota, basically featuring every acquisition we've done since 1982. and then it's going to go to other states. But we're starting with Minnesota because we have the best info for those land acquisitions. And I've been on the road for 4 days now. They're about 14-hour days, basically map questing from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. The latest one I did was last week. I was down in Worthington, Minnesota, which is in Nobles County. On the way down, I saw 2 broods just after lunchtime. I pulled into a WMA. I was taking pictures of all of them for this website. Pulled into a driveway and kicked up a brood of about 12. They were all pretty full grown. I mean, maybe not totally, but probably at least 12 weeks old. And then I ran into a pair in the morning, a pair of broods. One of them was probably 10 to 12 weeks old, and the other one I would say was maybe 4, and they were hanging out together on the side of the road. So anytime we see those really big broods and older broods this time of year, especially mixed in with the younger ones, we know that, number one, we had a really good early season hatch, and number two, the first nesting attempts that weren't successful, they're coming around now as well. Sure. And those hens are kicking off broods later in the summer. And, you and I have talked about this before too, is I try to hold off, and everybody's got a different view of it. The DNR, biologists, upland hunters, but I try to hold off as long as possible because I've done it before, especially like when I lived down in Iowa and training dogs. You try to, your butt chomping at the bit to get out there, and you get out there with your dog. And if your dog isn't totally controlled, and I had a really young one at the time, we got on a pheasant brood and they're chomping down on them. So sure. Ever since then, I learned my lesson, and I just kind of try to stay out of the way, let those birds get old enough. By mid-August, early September, go for it. And yeah. I don't know, biologically, it's probably not gonna affect populations, but I think it's more, it comes down to ethics and basically sure. giving. I mean, they got everything in the world trying to eat them. So Minnesota overall is looking good. I've also got a friend over by Marshall, Minnesota. A lot of people know where that is. It's a big pheasant hunting community. College buddy that's got about 1,000 acres over there. And when I was down in Worthington the other day, I called him and basically said that he's seeing the same thing. There are pheasants all over his ground, in his buffers, in his whole field CRP, and it's looking really good in Minnesota.
Okay. I was just thinking while you were talking there, maybe we should back up just a second. We should actually probably even discuss what roadside surveys are. Because it's kind of, so there's a couple of numbers that the Game and Fish here and other states put out. The first one that they put out early in the year is crowing counts. Maybe we start there and then we talk about what roadside surveys are as well.
Yep. So crowing counts are exactly what they sound like. You've got rooster pheasants going out, setting up territories. Ron, is your hat okay?
Ron, have you got a haircut? It looks shorter. God!
I didn't look at this. Why I'm Ronald Coleman.
It looks great. It looks great.
Handsome old dude. Anyway, somebody just put
nobody knows who Ronald Coleman is under the age of 80.
I was named after Ronald Coleman, so sorry.
Yeah, that's the only reason you know who he is.
But somebody just wrote up there, Ronald Coleman needs to be wearing a hat too. And I went and got a hat, said Wilderness Athlete on it. I love the shit. But you know what? If I'm inside, like there's an old rule. Donnie Slater used to work for me, and his mom told him, if you wear a hat inside, you're going to marry a crazy woman.
Yeah, but you're already married, and I don't think she's watching, so.
Yeah, but then I thought about it, and I backloaded it. I'm like, oh, my God. So you guys are all married, so you don't have to worry about it. But I'm telling you, you can't wear a hat inside. It just, I don't know, it feels funny. So,
fair enough.
Go ahead.
So crowing counts again, I mean, they basically take from 1 year to the next, going out in the spring when roosters are active, they're setting up territories, and they're actually calling to get the hens to come to them for breeding rights. And they basically do stops on a route throughout the state. They measure that, and depending from 1 year to the next, they can see abundance of roosters to tell us, we might have a larger breeding population going in to the coming fall.
Sure. So like whistle counts and crow counts are basically the same thing, right? When you're talking quail to pheasants.
Yep. And then On the other side of the equation, you've got roadside counts. They're done in normally early to mid-August for good reason. It's when we got heavy dew on the landscape, and those broods are actually coming out to roadsides to dry off. It's the easiest way to count them. And same thing, standardized routes. States do it a little bit different depending on how many birds per mile, or birds per 100 miles or 30 miles. They're all a little bit different. But it basically measures pheasant abundance, again, from one year to the next. And when you have a set of data over a long period of time, they can kind of show which direction populations are headed.
Sure.
Yep.
Had a quick question pop up from Mike, not necessarily tied into Minnesota, but close neighbor. Knowing that Michigan pheasants the numbers are down, and from where they were in the past, are there looks of having pheasant forever biologists here in Michigan, or has there ever been?
Well, I actually have one that I called today in order to get some information about what he's seeing in Michigan. So his name is Ben Beeman, and he's a coordinating wildlife biologist for Pheasants Forever. He works a lot with the DNR and our partners, and he actually goes out and basically looks at public areas, and he's really involved in a program out there, sort of a adopt a wildlife management area, where they're going through. It's part of the Michigan Pheasant Restoration Initiative, going out and upgrading public lands to make them the very best they can be for pheasant production and pheasant habitat. So we do have one biologist on board there. We'd love to get more. A lot of times it comes down to partnerships and working with United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service to help cost share positions and get them on the landscape. I think there's going to be more coming in Michigan. And from what he told me, he was seeing more birds on the landscape. He's in the southeast portion of Michigan. He's seen more birds on the landscape, and that's a good thing. Michigan has had a rough go at it. They sometimes can have really rough winters, but I think back in the day they used to shoot 1 million birds.
Really?
But a lot of that has to do with land changes and whatnot. But I think Michigan is either our third largest membership state in the country. It's either Michigan or Illinois. We got a lot of upland hunters over there that either.
Oh, I know. They all come over here. I'm aware.
Inviting them, Tyler.
Well, you started.
Honestly,
that's not my fault.
It's your fault.
Honestly, though,
Michigan
I've talked to a lot of different people over there, Pheasants Forever members, who they're going out and finding wild roosters on wildlife management areas or on farms that they've worked hard to get onto. So there's good things happening over there. It obviously doesn't happen overnight, but they got an influx of CRP acres a few years ago that are probably about 2 to 3 years old, depending on when they went in right now. And there's good things happening in the state, but pheasants, it's not an overnight thing. It takes a while to develop that population.
That is something that's really interesting. You go into downtown Detroit, and you've got all of the houses that were knocked down for blight.
Me?
Yeah, and so you're in right in downtown Detroit, and they fill up those fields where they're knocking these old
no way
blight fields down. And it's pretty crazy. I got friends that send me
videos flying across the highway
all day long. Yeah, they're just, if you could take one of your childhood traps down there.
It's actually kind of funny because I talked to Tom Carpenter today, who's our editor of the Pheasants Forever Journal. And this Ben Beeman I was talking to you about, who is a biologist for us. He actually got contacted by a group. They've actually got like pheasant paintings and graffiti and stuff in some of these areas of Detroit. They've actually become an icon of the city. Yeah. And you got these little lots where these birds. He sent me a picture last year. That was from one of the partners he's working on a project on, just on the outskirts of Detroit, with a hen pheasant and her brood walking down the sidewalk with like people in the background. So
that's crazy.
It's kind of a cool story, and one that we'd sort of like to tell. So we talked about that today, actually.
I've got some video of them walking around the downtown sub on my Facebook here. I'll see if I can find it and share it with you guys in a little bit. It's pretty comical to be right down in the hood, and then you've got these fields with pheasants just blowing up all over the place next to the factories.
Is that just due to the abandonment, and then it's just going back to native grasses and stuff? I mean, is there an example there to be had?
Tons of weeds, tons of acres of abandoned. You know, it was just like
set aside.
Yeah, set aside.
Honestly, that's what it is.
Well, you know, like Ron, you've been out here enough times to know that if you find an abandoned farmstead, you go and hunt that abandoned farmstead, you're probably going to find birds, right? It can't be that much different. You know, it's just a structure with a bunch of weeds around it. Even it doesn't really matter where it is.
The nice thing is, what people don't know is the street lights are still working in some of those areas, so the pheasants can feed all night.
Oh, so they're getting big.
There you go.
Yeah.
I might have made that up. I don't know. I might have made that up.
Rose was really. I had Hartley out on this outer one, and Rose didn't like that. But now that I put Hartley in his kennel, she's okay.
Happy, content.
Yeah, I was very distracted for the first 15 minutes.
So I actually have a little bit of news to break here. Not to interrupt, and it has nothing to do with pheasants.
Breaking news.
Since Nick got a dog and named it Rose, I decided I'm getting rid of my little puppy Rosie.
Really?
She's going to Travis Frank.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Little puppy.
He's getting a bird dog.
He's coming up to pick her up next weekend.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
So she's gonna be a movie star, and then now I am free to breed Rusty and CJ and get one of those puppies, which is really what I.
So you gave a good friend of yours, who's become a good friend of yours, you gave him an illegitimate child.
I did. Yeah.
Isn't it called a dropper?
No, that's an English pointer English setter cross, not a German short hair English setter cross. I don't know what this would be, but like they look just like little
it's a poinsettia. We already determined that.
I'll tell you, they've been out on some sharptails these last couple of weeks, and
I've seen the videos.
pretty good. Yep. Old cooter, she's going down the road. We couldn't have two Rosie puppies on the same.
I totally spaced that. Honestly, when I chose the name, that you had that other pup that was named Rose, I was either not aware or I hadn't been paying attention.
Yeah, I had to break some news there. Sorry.
Yeah, problem solved.
As long as you're on Sharptails, should we hit North Dakota quick? I'm
here for you.
So things are looking up from the fall here. You don't have to go back too many years. North Dakota had like back-to-back horrible winter, followed by like the largest drought they've seen in like 100 years. Anytime that happens, it takes pheasants a little while to recover. So they're on their way back up. North Dakota Game and Fish reported a 15% increase in crowing counts. So right there, that tells you got more breeding males in the landscape, and the hens are probably to follow. From what I know and people I've talked to, do you know Emily Spoliar?
Yeah.
I know that name, yeah.
Yeah, one of our, she's a precision ag specialist up there.
I think she's been on my podcast, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So she kind of provided a little bit of information for us. She lives kind of out in the southwest, where you don't have to go back very many years. They had a huge population of pheasants, especially if you're hunting plots ground.
Right.
But she's out in the Little Missouri National Grasslands. She's seeing great numbers of sharp-tailed grouse, lots of healthy-looking broods. And, with a timely crop harvest this year on the pheasant side, she thinks they're going to have a really good year. I talked to a rancher that I hooked her up with the other day for some habitat advice, and he said the same thing. He goes, pheasants and sharptails, I'm seeing quite a few more of them this year. They aren't back to where they were. I think it was 2014, 2015. It was a really good year. But they're on their way back up. So I think if I had to guess, crystal ball it, I'm going to say that you're going to see good things coming out of the roadside.
Do you want me to crystal ball? Do you want me to give you a number that I think it's going to be when the roadside surveys come out from this year to last year to this year?
I would, because you live up there.
I'm going to say 50% increase.
50%? That'd be good.
Last year we had a 58% increase because 18 sucked, and the year before that we had a 10% increase. I'm predicting another 50% increase. I think it's going to be a really good year.
Good.
Do pheasants and sharptails have any correlation?
It just tells you that the nesting season was conducive to producing chicks.
Yeah.
The Sharpies can handle the water problem as opposed to they can handle.
Yeah.
They grew up on the prairie. They'll fly to get water, where the pheasants could literally just go like, "Oh, ain't no water."
Right. But it's not really the water that's the problem. It's insects.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But same thing with no water is no insects either.
Right.
But
In 17, this is one of my favorite stats that ever come out from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. They do insect netting over some sloughs just to kind of like get a sample of what kind of bugs are on the landscape and like the numbers or whatever. And so they netted this little cattail slough one year in 16, and I don't know how I can't imagine they pay people to actually sit and count, but they estimated like 40,000 bugs were netted in this one slough. The next year in 17 with the drought, there was 14 bugs in the net. That kind of a difference. That is the difference between having birds on the landscape and having no birds on the landscape.
That's a decrease in the amount
That's a
of
little
bugs.
bit of, I mean, like we're talking about,
Statistically significant.
but yeah. I would say that would be a less than.
So yeah, I think North Dakota is gonna be pretty good this year. There might be a few people up there, probably more duck hunters with the border being closed. I'm on if you guys know Brett Amundsen at all, I'm on a podcast with him tomorrow. He's going to talk about that a little bit, but they're preparing for an onslaught of waterfowl and some upland hunters going to North Dakota.
Jared, give him a plug. What podcast is it?
Oh God, he just changed the name of it. You're putting me on.
Yeah, he did. Oh, go ahead.
What's his magazine?
It was Sporting Journal Radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's Fins and Furs, I think.
Brett T-Bone Amundsen.
Yep, T-Bone. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I met him a couple times.
I will give him a shout out.
Yep.
Yeah, Brett's a good dude. So it's looking good there. If you guys want to drop
Finding
that.
Fins. No, it's not
South Dakota.
Finding
next.
Fins Fishing Podcast. Is that really the name? Because he needs to change title.
What is it?
I believe that's it.
Finding Fins Fishing Podcast. That's a lot of F's.
Yeah.
F3P. We'll just go with that.
All right.
Dropping down to South Dakota, the news there is pretty good. I talked to 4 different staffers in the state today, one being our state coordinator, one being Erica Yost. She works, or Erica Hill, rather. She works with all of our staff in the state, or all of our chapters, rather. I talked to one of our precision ag specialists, and then one other farm bill biologist, all in different areas of the state. So here's some of the feedback that I got. I'm just going to kind of read through this quick so we can get to it. Chapter leaders are reporting a great hatch with lots of early broods and big birds. There's a Wessington Springs PF chapter president named Darwin that follows us on our Twitter account regularly. He's sharing broods on there at least once a week. Really good stuff. Same for Emmett Lenahan is in Brown County and Day County, kind of around that Aberdeen area, which has the most public ground in the state. He's seeing several groups of chicks each week. There's a lot of big ones. He saw a group of 7 just yesterday, and all the farmers he visited with. There's old and young broods all over the place. And then the last one I have is everyone that our precision agriculture specialist, Eric, has visited with, landowners, agencies, personal observations, and other PF staff indicate that bird numbers look up, judging by the lack of hens sitting right now and current chick size. It looks like first nesting success was good, and anytime we get chicks into the system earlier,
Sure.
They have a better chance of survival. So it was a mild last half of winter, early warm spring, earlier than average nest initiation, and lack of extreme precipitation events. It should be lining up for a pretty good year in South Dakota from everything.
I'm going to start packing my bags. I got to go.
Well, I have a confession to make. I've never hunted pheasants in South Dakota, not once. And so
We don't care. Step in North Dakota.
no, I got to come down there and kill all them pheasants for you do. I think that's what I got to do. I got to make one trip down there. I got to go down there in December.
If you've never been there before, just to try it one time, it really is the pheasant capital. And even in a down year, when you look at the number of millions of birds that they estimate that they have, I don't do too much early season hunting there. That's just me. Other people have different opinions, but I like to go late season, focusing on conservation reserve enhancement programs that don't have too many tire tracks pulling into them. If it's next to corn stubble, it's a recipe for success.
Nice.
So yeah, they've got the habitat looks great from all the water they had last year. Maybe still a little wet, especially on the eastern side of the state, but the habitat looks phenomenal. And it sounds like the birds have responded, and we're going to write more about that in Pheasants Forever's hunting forecast, which in my opinion is probably the most complete pheasant hunting forecast in the nation. So people can watch for that on our website.
When does that come out? Actually, I was going to ask you that earlier and I forgot.
Typically mid September, mid to late September is when it comes out, because there's some people that do it before the roadside counts come out, and a lot of things can happen. Like there's a couple counties in Minnesota that had baseball size hail a few weeks ago, and their entire cornfields and habitat just gone. And the pheasants aren't going to make it through that either. So there's things that can affect them still, but that roadside count is really, really valuable as far as figuring out what it's going to be.
For sure. Doug had to dip out for just a second. He's coming right back, but since there's nobody here to put it up on screen, there he is.
There he is.
Doug, put Buck Fredrickson's comment up on the screen for Ron, would you? There you go. He yelled at him.
You know what?
I love the name.
This is a story, and this is because of all RGS, PF, EU, Delta. You've heard me over the year, over this year, shaming people. If you take a wild bird from the population, you owe it to be a member of that group that supports that bird. I mean, come on, it's talk about freeloaders, right?
I think we should start the Sharptail group. The Sharptail grouse group.
Start it, Tyler.
There's a couple of state societies. There's a grouse North American Grouse Partners, and those guys are very focused on all prairie grouse. Yeah, I actually just interviewed him and hasn't been out yet. But.
Oh, that's good. I should get connected to them. I should give them the shout out too. So funny story. I get an email or a message from a girl named Jill, and she's up from a plantation / distillery down in Georgia or Alabama, one of the down south.
Are they looking to sponsor a Hunter's Happy Hour event?
Well,
well done.
She sent me the same message looking for places to run her dogs, and
right. And so her and another, they're not trainers. They actually went up to a Rick Smith seminar in Owasso. They decided to spend a couple weeks up in Michigan looking for grouse and woodcock in the non-gun season. So she got a hold of me, same to Doug, said, do you know any spots I could go? And I said, yeah, but I couldn't find my map, so it's hard to just. Anyway, she came out to the grounds, our NAVDA training grounds, last Wednesday night with her another guy that's a handler at the lodge. And they've had 5 pointers and a Vizsla, and we had talked all week, messaging back and forth. She showed up in her truck with 6 dogs in the back seat in a hammock, And when she got there, the first thing Bob, her buddy, said he goes you just shamed her into joining RGS because she's running dogs on non-gun. She joined just because I said, you cannot be a freeloader. You cannot take advantage of this resource any longer without ponying up the money.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Thanks for that. I'm glad Buck said that, and I'm glad Buck's not a freeloader anymore.
Let's be honest. If all 6 of us were sitting at a bar, or 5 of us, I'm including my Aunt Robin over here, right there. If we were all sitting at a bar together shooting the shit, a round of drinks would cost us more than a membership to either PF, RGS, any of the organizations. So, $35 for a year
would cost
money well spent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I drink good booze, and Robin likes Irish car bombs. They're like fucking $10 a piece.
Those are terrible.
Yeah,
Irish car bomb.
Well, and actually, an Irish car bomb.
yeah, she likes an Irish car bomb. Yeah.
Hey, Jared, this would be a random question, but there's a guy that I want to say he lives by you. His name's Kenny. He's a PF grant specialist, right? Does that ring a bell at all? Kenny Reed?
Kenny Reed, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. He just posted some pictures of some crazy hail by his cabin, and I was just curious if you knew him and knew where that was, because they had like a lot of damage.
That's near Hinckley, Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's what we were pointing to earlier, is that like when you get hail of that degree, and he didn't post I didn't see what size of hail it was, but even adult birds, like if they aren't taking cover from that stuff, I mean, a baseball size hail can wipe out a pheasant population really quick.
It can wipe out me.
Yeah.
It was taking like chunks out of like vegetables and stuff in his garden, so
it was bad, and he's got a pretty good pheasant population up there in Pine County, Minnesota.
Yeah, I've talked about that before.
Yeah, and I posted a couple videos on Pheasants Forever's page earlier on in the summer, where we've got a farm bill biologist up there too, and she was taking pictures of, or taking video rather, of a hen pheasant on the side of the road with a brood of like 12. So things are looking. They were looking good at the time. It's hard to say, if they've got good cover and they're down below that, and they've grown a lot since then. It's just hard to know. Like my parents just got up here today to come and visit us for the first time since Thanksgiving and this whole COVID thing hit. And they were coming through Iowa. They're coming through Iowa yesterday, and they were behind that. Is it a derecho? Is that what they call it? That 80 mile an hour, 90 mile an hour winds between Ankeny or Des Moines and Ames, Iowa. There was 20 semis on their sides.
Wow.
I mean, it's just a lot of force of nature,
I talked to Greg Cronkite from Dakota 283 yesterday. We were supposed to do a podcast talking about pheasant numbers in South Dakota. And he's like, he was on the road, and he's got one of those big, like, Winnebago campers. He's like, can't talk, trying to keep her on the road. I was like, oh my God, are you serious? He's like, I've never seen anything like it. He said there's like 70, 80 mile an hour winds. Well, that's what was going on, apparently.
Wow. Yep, and it'll be interesting to see, because all my friends, we can move to Iowa if you want to, but all my friends down there are seeing a ton of birds. I guess I haven't asked. They haven't been out after that storm went through because, well, they're cleaning up trees in their own yards. But and I think in a lot of cases, if it's just high winds, those birds are going to be fine. But there was a lot of good things coming out of Iowa with the connections and friends I have down there from being a staffer down there early on in my career with Pheasants Forever. There's going to be a lot of pheasants in that state this year.
I listened to the podcast you did with I think it was you and Travis and Bob on the Wing podcast, and Iowa has been a under the radar state in the past, and then it got like discovered, and then all the pheasants left, and now it's kind of that under the radar state again. Ron shushing me. There's an episode. I got to direct some people away from here. I'm starting to get overrun here. So, all those. And by the way, when you said earlier, I've invited a bunch of people from Michigan. I've never invited a person from Illinois, so you can't hold that against me. So, those what do they call them? Fibs, I think, is what they call them, which has a other meaning apparently. But Iowa's on the way. Like, everybody should stop there. But it seems like you guys got an episode of The Flush coming out, you and Travis did last year, where you guys really got into him, I think, right?
Yep. I actually scheduled a podcast with him to talk about that episode at the end of the month here. I think it's airing in September. But we went to the western side of the state. We hunted some IHAP, Iowa Habitat and Access Program, basically like a walk-in hunting area that Iowa has now. I think it's about 5 or 6 years in. Sorry, there's a few bugs out here. And then we hunted some chapter stuff. The chapters down there do a great job of working with private landowners, helping them burn, working with a farm bill biologist on our side to get them enrolled in CRP. We flushed hundreds of birds on that trip. I'm not not one or two, not tens, but hundreds. It was awesome. We shot quite a few limits, which, you know, that's not what it's about, but it's really nice when it happens and everything comes together.
What's there? What's working?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And I was a really interesting case because back between I think it was 2007 and 2012, they had 5 consecutive years of like 40 inches of snow or more.
Right.
And then in the springs were just horrible. It was like above 8 inches of rain, which is their average there, pretty much every spring as well. And they were down to basically the bottom of the barrel. I mean, people were talking about closing down the pheasant season and not hunting anymore, which, you know, if you do any reading at all, you know that you're never going to kill every rooster in a state. It's just not going to happen. But, you know, they started slowly coming back. They had some good weather. And then along comes the Farm Bill and Conservation Practice 42, which is pollinator habitat. It's the best brood rearing and sometimes nesting habitat that you can possibly have on the landscape. And they've got, I think, over 200,000 acres of it. They've got the most in the country. And ever since then, they've had some good weather. They've had more CRP enrollments. I'm telling you, Iowa's back. They just haven't had the hunters come back. If you're looking for a great trip this year, Iowa's it.
Justin or Jared, I got a question tied into the pollinators because we hear a lot of that in the last couple of years. You guys have pushed it, and I was ignorant to all that. I didn't pay attention to the birds and the bees part of it. When Iowa was in its heyday,
of the birds or the bees, yeah.
What do you want?
Back that with Ron right here.
So back in the day when Iowa did have, I remember friends of mine from NAVDA, Lance and John and Judy, as a matter of fact, it was on last week.
Right.
They told me I was wasting my time going all the way to South Dakota because I could go to Iowa, right? They were doing great. When did the pollinator thing become such in the forefront? Was it always, the CRP doesn't mean you've got wildflowers, right? Or does it?
No, not totally. So a lot of the mixes changed over the years, and you kind of put me on the spot there, Ron. I can't remember what year it was. It was back.
I don't know what year, but it was kind of more like about the grasses, and there's been more weight on the wildflowers along with the grasses now, right?
Yep, you're absolutely correct. So back when CRP first started, and you know, kind of through the soil bank days, through the 80s and early 90s, a lot of those mixes were made up of just a couple species of grass.
Right.
And since that point, as succession goes in CRP, whether it's pollinator habitat or anything else, you're eventually, if it's not managed, you're eventually going to go to a monoculture of grass.
Right.
And that's about the worst thing that you could possibly have for pheasants. And, you know, a lot of people dispute that. They'll say, like, well, like a state like Iowa, especially southern Iowa, back in the day, they produced all kinds of pheasants and they only had brome grass. Well, the key there is that was mixed with alfalfa, which is flowering plant. And it was producing a lot of chicks. So what we figured out is that when we're infusing more forbs or flowering plants into these mixes, you're getting just that quality habitat that pheasants and their chicks need. I mean, when they come out for their first couple months of life, they're eating 100% bugs, soft-bodied insects, and flowers attract that. And if they don't have that, they're in deep trouble because they can't get enough protein.
Was it in the early 2000s that Iowa rivaled South Dakota in pheasant harvest? It was South Dakota, Iowa, North Dakota for a long time.
Yep.
Like that was like the late 90s, early 2000s, right?
It was. They had 25 years in a row. Iowa had 25 years in a row. They harvested more than 1 million birds every year.
Wow, that's incredible.
And, you know, depending on how many hunters come back, some of the latest statistics show from like roadside counts that they could probably support upwards of 700,000, 750,000 bird harvests. But the hunters just haven't come back. We've sort of lost a little bit of a generation. And that's why it blows me away that it takes a pandemic to get like more fishermen, more men and women out on the landscape, more outdoor people, more turkey hunters. You're going to see more pheasant and quail hunters this year because people are like, you know what, I'm working from home or I'm at home and I'm going to try it. And, if that's what it takes to get them involved, that's fine. But I find it interesting, that we're going to see a lot more people hunting this year. And I did see a comment on the bottom there that, I think one gentleman said they'd hunt Iowa if it had more.
I was just going to bring up that comment. Yeah.
More public land. I think they rank, it was 49th in the U.S., the only state that had less public lands than they do.
Rhode Island.
The only state that had less public, Rhode Island.
Really? I thought Texas had less, but.
No, I mean, Texas is huge. They got
probably.
But they're only like
millions
1% public or something like that. Yeah.
You got to remember, 1% of Texas is a lot.
Is Rhode Island
it's a lot.
probably, yeah.
But I mean, when you look at the, I don't care what state it is, 75 to 80% of your hunting is going to happen in the first month and a half, and after that, it's pretty wide open. And then you think about, well, there's a lot of people that don't like to hunt waterfowl production areas because they aren't allowed to use lead. Which we can get into that on a different podcast. That's not a big deal for anybody, or it shouldn't be. But between waterfowl production areas and their Iowa wildlife management areas, the county system there, these new Iowa habitat and access programs, there is a lot of room to go hunt. I mean, Travis and I and our crew that we were with, Matt O'Connor from Iowa, who runs our habitat specialists all over the country.
Podcast a couple months ago.
Yeah, we saw. I think one other hunting group, and they weren't even on the place that we were hunting, and that was it. We didn't run into anybody else, and that was the first week of December. So I put people's minds at ease. Like, if you want to get away from people, you certainly can in the state of Iowa. It just matters when you go. If you go during the week instead of the weekend, there's different things you can do, but that hunting pressure really comes off after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure.
What does, and if you don't know this off the top of your head, that's fine. I'm just curious because I've hunted Kansas enough to know that you're not going to make any friends in Kansas if you're out there trying to hunt birds during the whitetail season. Mm-hmm. And Iowa is a big buck state. So when does the Iowa rifle season work? Or do you know? Yeah,
they're shotguns. I think they allow straight wall cartridges now. So rifle season, I guess you could throw that in there. It's typically the first. They run two weekends. It's I believe it's the first weekend in December, first full weekend in December, and then there's like a 4 or 5 day break, and then they have their second weekend. And to be honest, like if you're up on some of these big wildlife areas and waterfowl production areas where there's really not as many deer, you got to still watch a little bit, but because a lot of those guys will sit on the outside and wait for pheasant hunters basically to push deer. Push deer. I saw it last year. We got there, I think it was just before the deer season. The guy I was hunting with up in Northwest Iowa tells me all the time that the deer hunters are there, but trying to get a shot in a 1,000-acre cattail slough at a deer by yourself. It's a pretty tall, it's a tall task. So
I'll tell you right now, I did, like you said, 1,000-acre cattail slough. Oh geez, oh my God! Like, how do you do that, man?
And that's the part that wasn't on that flush episode that people are going to see. Is I stopped up there afterwards. It was 2 of us and 2 dogs, and we moved hundreds of birds on a wildlife management area in Northwest Iowa. So there's a lot to be had in Iowa if people are looking for a fun hunt. I think their season runs through the 10th of January, and then quail season goes to the end of the year if you want to get in on that too. So pretty cool stuff.
That's kind of the first state that we've talked about that actually has quail. So like I mean, PF and QF are kind of related. North Dakota doesn't have quail. Minnesota doesn't have quail. South Dakota doesn't. I don't think they have quail.
Why aren't there quail in North Dakota?
Well,
Winters.
It's too cold.
They can't handle the weather.
I will tell you though that we were out. There's a guy up here running dogs with me for a few days, and we went out the other day, and the chuckers that I was trying to train dogs on in May, I found 3 of them the other day that are still alive. So apparently they escaped all the hawks and coyotes and fox and everything else. But we haven't had it's just too cold for quail. I think South Dakota's too cold for quail too. I think.
But maybe right on Minnesota, I think.
Maybe right on the border.
Right on the border of Nebraska.
I shot a quail in Tyndall, South Dakota, which is just north of the Nebraska border.
Okay.
Years ago. And dogs went on point, and I'm waiting for a bird to come out, whether it was a hen or a rooster. And I was like, whoa! But it's really rare. Same thing. There was some huns down there too, but
it's rare.
Really rare.
That flush episode in Iowa, the second half of it, you're going to see some quail. You're going to see some quail shot, and that was 40 minutes from the Minnesota and South Dakota borders.
No way.
That's
and
close.
they come way up there.
Wow.
Yep. It's like if they can handle that kind of winter, what's holding them back? Obviously, conditions, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you though. Like, what is the quail population like in Iowa? Because I've been hearing rumors of that for the last couple of years, where it's like,
there goes Ron again.
I know. I keep on hearing it's like, man, you should probably come and check out the bobwhites in Iowa. And it's like, I go to Kansas, and Kansas is, well, it always kicks my ass, but everybody else shoots birds when they're there. But I've hunted Nebraska. I know Nebraska's good, but
Yep. Iowa can be really good, especially on some of those IHAP areas. They've got a lot of them in the southern 2 tiers of counties, which is where like the mainstay of the quail population is as you go east to west across the state. There's a pretty good quail population. I think it was 2 years ago during roadside counts, they found that they rank the highest quail population in Iowa in the past 30 years.
Nice.
So that's saying something. There were guys moving big coveys of quail. I've got friends down there that were moving them on public property and harvesting a few. There's a lot of quail. So southwest Iowa through south central and down in the southeast. That's kind of anywhere along that I-80 corridor and south that kind of runs through Des Moines. So Council Bluffs, Des Moines, over to Davenport. Anywhere below there, you're gonna run into quail.
Huh, that's awesome, man. I never even, it's one of those things that I never even really thought of until like the last 3-4 years. And I was talking to a lot of people. They're like, yeah, we shoot some quail. It's like, all right.
I know I received a couple of Iowa tailgate pictures last year that involved bobwhite quail. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty decent.
Dryfly here says they need more QF chapters in Wisconsin. And I know Wisconsin was one of those states a couple years ago that kind of went under the radar as well for pheasant harvest.
Yeah, I think we've got only one chapter of Quail Forever in the state of Wisconsin. But as far as pheasants go, I'd say the biggest population is probably in the western corridor, just across the river from the Twin Cities. I know we've had a biologist in that area for a long time that really likes to hunt waterfowl production areas later in the season, and he's done really, really well. Now it's hard to say what's going to happen this year. They had an easy winter. The spring started off pretty well. But then we had that big tropical depression that came up through like the eastern side of Iowa. I think it was from a leftover hurricane that came up through and dropped just massive amounts of rain across the border from Minnesota, which could have impacted. I mean, there was flooding everywhere, and that can cause some serious issues for hen pheasants.
Sure.
So I don't have a good a base for what's happening in Wisconsin presently, but they're going to do their upland forecast, and we'll know more at that time, and we'll publish it in our pheasant hunting forecast.
Sure. So
nobody wants to hunt Wisconsin anyway.
Well, even the people from Wisconsin go to Minnesota.
Nobody wants to hunt Wisconsin. For one thing, the legal alcohol limit is lower than most states. I mean,
which is bizarre because they are a very
drinking.
Maybe that was the result of it, though.
Right.
Just stay out of Wisconsin. Let them have their CWD, dear.
Yeah, you guys can stay out of there, and I'll keep shooting their grouse.
Yeah, I know you did pretty well there last year on grouse, and I used to have a cabin up in Solon Springs, Wisconsin. And it was great. It was great time hunting rough grouse up there. I haven't hunted pheasants in Wisconsin, but I know several people that have, and they get plenty of birds. So
I talked to our buddy Ted Summers today, and he he said there may be a few grouse in Wisconsin again this year. So just put that out there.
I know that Wisconsin has a big pheasant release program, but they've obviously got a consistent enough wild pheasant population still.
Yep, they do, and it's spotty. It depends on the area, how much available habitat is there, and I hear it all the time from folks that message us on Facebook or contact us, on the website saying, you guys going to do more work in Wisconsin. We've got a lot of great chapters there. They do burns. They have done some adopt a wildlife area projects there on public lands. There's birds there to be had. It's not, they don't have, you look at their CRP acreage, and you can basically determine like they aren't going to have the biggest pheasant population in the world. They just aren't.
Yeah.
Sure.
You come across the river and go a couple hours west into a state like Minnesota that's got 1.8 million acres, I think, of CRP right now. Or sorry, can't remember what it is. It's in the million category. It's a lot of grass in the landscape, and that's what it takes to produce a good pheasant population.
Did you say what the number of acres was in CRP in Wisconsin? Do you know?
I could look it up if you give me a sec.
Well, yeah, it's not that important, but I was just curious of the comparison. Minnesota's at around that 1.8. Is Wisconsin? Are they like sub 500,000?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. No big deal.
So there's 3 more states that I would consider like the big pheasant states that we haven't hit yet, and we're almost an hour in. So let's quickly run through Montana and Nebraska. And Kansas is going to be a little bit different because I think there's more people in Kansas than there are in North Dakota. I swear to God, there are. Every time I go down to Kansas, all I see are bird hunters. It's insane. It's like January until February 1st. It's insane. But let's run through Montana and Nebraska quick before we take a quick break and go get refills and pee.
I didn't have a ton of data from Wisconsin. I reached out to a couple farm bill biologists, but a lot of them I think were on the road today. They cover really, really big areas in Montana. The one I did hear back from was farm bill biologist Heather Brower. She reported this afternoon she's seeing a really great number of shark tails and Hungarian partridge in Montana's northeast corner. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. There we go. Close to home, or closer to home for you, anyways.
I don't need to travel for either of those.
Montana's gone through the same thing that North Dakota went through. The extended drought that they had a few years ago really set them back.
Well, and plus their entire state was on fire. Like, no kidding. Yeah. Like they burned like 1 million acres or something like that, or more than 1 million acres in 2017. It was crazy.
17,
yeah.
I even went out to Lewistown, Montana a couple years ago on a kind of a backcountry bear hunt in some of those island mountain chains, and I was surprised at that time because that was really right after that big drought was going on, and we saw pheasants on the side of the road. We got a few sharp tails up on the way into the area that we were hunting. So I think there's good things. I think there's good things happening there if we can stay away from drought and give them a little moisture. That's one of those states that's really, really controlled by moisture or lack thereof. If they don't have it, the birds and the broods are going to suffer.
Right, for sure.
Hey, real quick, I just saw 2 things. One of them, Andrew said, seriously, Ohio habitat is atrocious, and it seems like our DNR doesn't care. I mean, we can't fix that on this little thing.
Care to comment, Jared?
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, Ohio, it's just so. It was one of the good states way back in the day, but it's a problem. I just want to let them know I saw that, Andrew, and I agree with.
Ohio Upland Company is commenting now.
Yeah.
Too.
The other one is Jeff said
The Nebraska thing.
is a non-resident 14-day quarantine for out-of-staters. Is that going to? If you're listening, is that going to be throughout the year, or is that just currently right now in the summertime?
I know that was a case for turkey season this spring because I was planning on going down there and shooting turkeys. I have not heard if it was going to extend.
I don't want to put out.
Yeah.
I don't want to put out fear, but if that's true, You know, I mean,
Ooh, Kansas too.
What?
uh-oh.
No, that's
I'm-
Sean Ewald from Minnesota. He just doesn't want nobody to go hunt Kansas.
Wait.
He's one of your PF chapter presidents, that guy.
I'm supposed to go to Kansas
Smiley-
this year, so he had
Double
me.
smiley face.
He had me
Yeah,
frazzled.
he's got the winky faces going on.
Ohio again is an interesting state. They've got a lot of pollinator habitat initiatives going on in that state. We've got quite a few farm bill biologists out there working with private land. What is going on here?
Is that the pointer?
Yeah, that's the pointer. There's a
Jackson.
there's a robin nest under the desk.
Jackson, whoa.
Carrie, put her inside.
Did he just tell his wife to do something?
She just got home. She just got home with the kids and didn't realize I was on the deck.
It did sound like a command.
You got control of your kitchen, mister.
That's right. Ohio is an interesting state. They don't have a ton of CRP. What they do have is Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. So the Scioto River kind of runs through, I think, the central or sort of west central side of the state, and that the Scioto River watershed is basically their mainstay of pheasant habitat coming down from one of the Great Lakes. They do still have wild pheasants there in places that can be good. Jim Inglis is our director of governmental affairs, lives there, does a lot of habitat work. But the one interesting thing about Ohio this year, I called them today to check in. They didn't have a ton of pheasant reports yet, but what they did have is the quail range. We're in a partnership with different agencies and other organizations. They're working on quail habitat in focus areas in southern parts of that state. And based on what the biologists are seeing right now and seeing with landowners and hearing anecdotally, they're looking to see a nice little bump in their quail population that they haven't seen for a long time. And there's a lot of work going. Yep, there's a lot of work going into those focus areas in the southern tier of the state, which is great.
You know, it's fun. I know. Oh, we got to hit the break here if anybody needs it, I guess.
Go ahead. Ask your question. I'm still Googling Nebraska and seeing if that's actually still true.
I'm looking it up
I was
too.
just going to say that before we hit the break was
Come on now, Mike. I don't get emails for discounts for scented candles. I just buy them in bulk. Like most
Got
people.
a permanent promo code.
we talk about, or I talked about earlier, like saying join that pheasant group, join that grouse group, whatever. But it almost feels like from this conversation and the last, seems like we're kind of turning a little bit of a corner here, like
We're
for the
certain.
better.
I
You
think
know, Indiana listed rough grouse. Ohio doesn't hardly have any, but I think awareness is up. I think is that. Do you feel that too, Jared?
I think it is. And if you look at some of the things that have happened lately, the Great American Outdoors Act and that full funding of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, you want to know what that's a result of? That's a result of, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, all these different conservation groups, all these lifestyle brands, right? Upland hunting brands pushing in one direction, saying, listen, we really need this. And that's what it takes in order for legislators and others to hear what people want to see on the landscape, frankly. And it's, again, nobody asked for COVID, but if it's helping to reactivate hunters and get new hunters on the landscape and experience what we all get to experience. And, one of the things I'll point out, and you, Tyler, you might have heard this on the podcast that we did with Travis Frank, the glory days of upland hunting in this country, they're not over. And I get really tired of people saying that, like, I had a guy come on and comment on a grouse hunt on one of the flush shows. I think the first one that we posted with Travis Frank and his wife, and he's like, man, those were the glory days, and I go,
that was this year.
Actually, that was 2019, the fall of 2019. So, from what I saw last year,
Maybe he had a black and white TV, Jared.
What's that?
Maybe the guy was watching it on an old black and white TV.
Probably thought it was back in the day, but I mean, judging from what I've seen and I follow Nick and Tyler and Ron. I follow everybody pretty closely, and man, there were some pretty decent hunts had in the last couple of years. So to come and say that, I think we're turning a corner. We're getting more CRP on the landscape, and I can talk about that a little bit later as well. But
Sure.
When we continue to add habitat, the birds are going to respond. And I don't care if they're pheasants or quail or ruffed grouse or sage grouse or huns or sharptails or thunder gobblers. It's all related.
Man, to your point, Jared, I mean, even if there were times that were better than right now, the real takeaway, you and I being 2004 Duluth East grads, we haven't been around for like some people that might be right above us in the middle of the screen. But the point is, like, this isn't something we want to let go and give up. Like it's that good where you can get awesome upland hunting still today. So if you're down in the dumps feeling, and I know that, I mean, I live in a area that I have excellent public land access. I have good wild birds. So I know that's not the same for everybody, but it's still there and we don't want to let it go.
Right.
I would totally agree with that sentiment. And I would add to it that, upland hunters, conservation groups are fighting tooth and nail. We're fighting like hell right now to get the things back that we care about most. And that's following a bird dog in the fields, in the forest, whatever it might be. And getting back to that time, I don't know what, like you just said, I don't know what the glory days are. I wasn't alive then, but some of the hunts I've been on, and a lot of them on public lands, have been pretty damn good. So there's some really good things to look forward to in the future here.
I started hunting when I was 8 years old. I started carrying a shotgun. I was hunting before that. And I called Ron earlier this spring, and I did start drinking when I was 6. I was an early bloomer. It was because of my Aunt Robin. It was her fault. And he's going to shush me again, but I called him earlier this year and I said, here's the deal. This is going to be the best year for huns I've ever seen in North Dakota in my adult life. And I also think that is going to correlate with pheasants and sharptails. There's a guy up here right now, him and his wife, they came up for a couple days from Maryland. They drove all the way up here to run dogs. They got a Klein Munchtelander and a draught and a little itty bitty baby draught that's 14 weeks old. They came up for 5 days just to run dogs on birds. Mm-hmm. And this morning they were out, and he posted a video of his draught doing some great work on some sharptails. And he said that in the post he actually referenced flushing like 30 birds because he didn't think anybody would believe him if he said that it was more than that, but he said it was certainly more than that.
Yep.
So this is, and I know that, I'm not even for once in the history of this entire thing, I'm not making fun of Ron, but Ron probably did get to see the glory days in South Dakota in the 80s and the very early 90s when it was really, really good. But in my lifetime and in Nick's lifetime and in Jared's lifetime and in Doug's lifetime, it's pretty freaking good right now.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I'll tell you that it's not going to keep me from buying a hunting license, even if I did find out the bird numbers were shitty.
Right.
But they're not. So it's definitely worth it.
And a lot of people ask, what difference can I make, like lobbying for CRP or lobbying for more grassland? We're going to continue to do that because it wasn't that long ago. We were at 38 million acres, and you look back to it wasn't that long ago. 2007, 2008 were modern day peaks. I mean, I think they shot over 2 million pheasants that year in South Dakota. I mean, that was
we shot 1.5 million in North Dakota, I think.
Yeah, that was the year I graduated. That was the year I graduated college. For God's sake, it was not that long ago.
Right.
Maybe it was, but
no, it wasn't.
North Dakota, the same thing. You guys had 3 million acres of CRP, and that basically got chopped in half. I think you're right around 1.5, 1.4, 1.3, somewhere around there right now. And anytime you take that much grassland off the landscape, that's what happens. Wildlife is going to respond negative.
Sure.
So real quick, I gotta go real quick because I think I'm out of beer and I gotta go out to pickup truck and get some. But somebody asked how far south pheasants can go, and I know there was some wild pheasants around Lubbock, Texas, 4 years ago. So if there's lands and habitat and pollinators, they could get that way. Just to answer his question, but I can't answer this question. Can labs hunt huns? I think any dog can hunt any bird.
I was going to answer that, and I was going to say that if Dryfly wants to pay attention and watch this in like mid-October, Doug can answer that question.
Yeah,
because we're going to try here with his labs.
I think it depends on the dog, right?
They certainly can. They certainly can.
There's pheasants all the way down into Mexico.
Oh, Mexico!
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh shit!
I know. I've seen them right along the Kansas Oklahoma border, like the very south.
Oklahoma for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've flushed them. Their crowing counts are actually, I've been told, are up in Oklahoma this year, which is pretty cool. But
talk about that.
The Panhandle.
All
right, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have to take like a. God dang it. Who's delayed here? Come on.
Somebody's got a bit of a delay.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that the Texas Panhandle, like Ron was talking about, there is a significant number of pheasants in those areas. Again, down there, it's precipitation. If they get rain, they have pheasants coming out of their ears. They did a flush episode on that a few years ago. They do a big hunt every year too up in the Panhandle.
I saw that.
Kind of a contest, which is pretty cool too. So
that question that just popped up, Jared, is that something that you could answer real quick?
What's that?
It's more of an observation, but
well, I think is that true? So when you look at the membership and the donations that are done to Pheasants Forever, what's the percentage of money that goes back into habitat, and if you have local chapters collecting money, is most of the membership that they collect going back locally, or is it getting distributed where it's going to have the most impact?
Well, it depends. There's regional reps that work with our chapters out there. Like if there's a big land acquisition going on in a particular county, right? They'll ask for, and that's a nice thing about Pheasants Forever's model is that the volunteers who are raising that money have direct control over it. They can decide if they want to contribute to a land acquisition next door that's going to, buy up 300 acres and add on to a complex. But historically, and then where we sit right now, 91 cents of every dollar that comes in the organization goes right back into the ground. We have one of the highest efficiency ratings of nonprofit charities in the United States.
That's incredible.
Yep.
What do you think, boys? We're going to take a quick 2-minute recharge.
Yeah, I could do that.
And,
I'm gonna move inside. It's getting buggy out here.
All right, we'll be back.
Yep.
All right.
Doug, you really need to create some sort of like a,
I have one I have one being made. It's time. I find that I'd rather be out chasing after grouse right now.
Oh my Lord!
Rebooted.
Oh,
There are too many damn mosquitoes out there. I had to move inside.
I went out into the garage to go into my cooler to get beer out of my truck. All 4 dogs got in the garage. I could not get them to come back. Taffy's on top of the tailgate. Zara won't listen at all. I was throwing beer cans at him. It was a mess. Oh, wait, are we live?
Yeah, we don't actually turn off.
Oh,
yeah. Jeez.
I was just kidding. Anyway. Where's that setter guy?
Which setter guy? Me? I'm right here.
I'm sitting here talking away here. No, so this video submission competition for our break session, maybe that would be a fun way to give away a dog truck. That dog truck can be. They have to be legit videos, not something that you filmed with your cell phone.
I like that, Jared. I have 2 of those in the freezer right now. They're happy to
I knew you would.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
You know, the other thing we could do is we could just have people, and I know that Ron, I'm totally stealing this from Ron, but we could just have people send in hunting pictures, and we could just put together like a slide.
That would be stealing it from me, and that's the one that I have being built is being done that way.
Perfect. All right, sounds good.
But I would rather have
Rosie,
somebody that actually knows how to edit makes a big
puppy.
The only Rose left, Tyler.
Look at how cute she is.
Is it going to be a slick coat?
Looks like she got pretty short hair.
You know, yeah, some of the dogs, I mean, my other dog, Hartley, he's got a pretty like light coat for a setter.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that at all. So if she's like that, that'd be good. Yeah.
She's pretty damn cute.
Yeah. You know what? She saw her first rough grouse in the air yesterday. And this morning she saw her first sharptails in the air.
Nice.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
You went over there west of you? Found some?
Yes, to the south to get on the sharptails. And yesterday we were out on some ski trails around here. And my older dog went on point, walked in, and we busted up a group of at least seven grouse, a young brood, rough grouse. And then this morning we ran for about an hour and just had the one find. But I had her on there's kind of these roads that you can go on. Obviously the cover's kind of brushy, but the Hartley went on point, not very far off the road, and walked in and had a perfect double flush of 2 sharptails, got up, and was right on my heels. So
I want to talk to that because Jared invited me up last year and I got to go hunting with him up around, can we say where it was or does it matter?
Hinckley, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Up in that vicinity. And when he said not only there was pheasants, which I'm like, looks like all woods, there's also sharptails up there. And you're in Duluth and you got sharptails by you.
I've got to drive. I'm like driving down towards that area.
Okay.
Where I'm going to get on Sharpies is in Wisconsin, and there's a handful of places in Wisconsin that are maintaining what's called Barrens habitat. And
I've heard about that.
Yeah, the fire dependent landscape. And the sharptails you can't hunt them. You haven't been able to hunt them for a while. When you could, it was very limited. There's not a lot of birds, but they're still there. And again, it's another one of those things where you got under my skin a little bit, Ron. I was driving away, and there's a Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society, and I interviewed some folks about it about a year ago. As I was driving away, I'm like, I know some people that are involved, so I was sending some texts and just saying, where do I go to contribute? Because I just don't feel right about going down there and flushing.
Throw that into the spiel, and I'm going to be bold and say that Bob St. Pierre and Tyler Webster and Nick Larson should also be telling all their listeners, which a lot of ours are the same listeners. Yeah. Like if you're taking if you're extracting a resource.
Oh yeah.
Support that NGO that's supporting you. It's the only today it's the only reason we've got what we've got because of the organizations. It really is.
You've always talked about it, Ron, but it just seems like right now is not the time to take something for granted, and for how easy it is to chip in, to throw your hat in the ring and be a supporter of the flagship organization for whatever species. And I realize everybody has limited resources, but
I'm a member of RTS, and I don't have very many rough grouse in North Dakota to hunt. There are some, but
are you coming to Michigan hunting this year?
Sounds like a road trip. Road trip.
Michigan, UP.
If I do, it's going to be late. I don't know, maybe December. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
the bird. Okay, so like it's not like we're live on YouTube and there's not anybody watching or anything like that. So I'm just gonna like the bird hunting in North Dakota may be so fucking good this year that I just don't want to leave until December. I get into Arizona, so like it's gonna be really good.
Honestly, Tyler, I know you love traveling and going places. I think you're an idiot for going to Arizona.
No.
No, I'm telling you.
You can't say that until you've tried it because
Well, I'm just telling you, you've got birds to hunt and birds and other all the way down there, just so you don't have to deliver the mail. I think that's what it's all about.
It's not because I don't have. Well,
Yeah,
okay,
no, you
fine.
don't
I
want to
could
deliver the
definitely
mail in the cold. You let your employees do it. You're like, yeah. I
also let my employees deliver the mail in September and October. I'm not working those months either, and it's not cold here then. So,
You want to hit the Arizona forecast?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Let's jump on it.
Yes.
So Al Iden is his name, is our South Region Director down there. He works with all of our farm bill biologists in that area. And Jonathan Odell, who I think most of you guys know pretty well.
Oh yeah,
He's a great guy. I had him up grouse hunting a few years ago, and he
talks about it.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
You got a picture?
No, I've been watching the moisture. I've been watching the monsoons every day, and I've been taking pictures of where it's raining.
Yeah.
So I know where to go and hunt Mearns quail. I am that insane. All right. Like starting July 1st, I have 41 pictures of where it's been raining in Arizona since July 1st.
So early indications are that Gamble's quail are going to be better than last year.
Yeah.
They had good winter rains in much of their habitat. In a very limited time in the desert north of Phoenix, where Mr. Iden lives. He's seen good sized broods in July. And he's seen evidence of second clutches going on now, which bodes well. I would say the same. My parents live down in Tucson, kind of out on the edge near the mountains, and there's just a lot of quail around right now. As you talked about Mearns quail and those the summer monsoon rain, they've had maybe a little bit this year. They need more, or they needed more. It's getting pretty late in the summer. It could be a tough season, but until people get out in the fall and really check out and see what populations are like, it's going to be hard to know.
It's going to be very localized, would be my bet. I mean, because
Yeah.
there are certain mountain ranges that have gotten a lot of rain, and certain mountain ranges that haven't gotten any. And
Yeah.
that's why I've been taking pictures of the radar every goddamn day, because I know where they got the rain. So now I will tell you that last year was my third year down there in a row. And last year was the best year I ever seen for gambles and scales since I've been going down there. And from what John said, I mean, I was down there. I know that it was green all the way through winter. They had a lot of rain and everything else. And he said that the gambles and the scale quail should be like better than last year, and last year was pretty good. So whether the Mearns quail actually have the monsoon season that we were hoping that they would or not, it's kind of inconsequential, really, because there's still going to be a lot of desert birds.
It'll be interesting to see too, like along the mountains there. I know where my parents live. They had some big wildfires. I mean,
Right?
big
Yeah. I knew they did. Yeah.
Yeah, that basically swallowed those mountains whole. So they were sending me pictures at night from their house, basically of the mountainside. It's just in the dark. It's just lit up with fire all the way across it. So
Right.
it'll be interesting to see what happens down there. For scaled quail populations, they can be a lot more difficult to predict, and this year really isn't going to be an exception to that. We're doing Arizona Game and Fish is partnered with Quail Forever. We're doing some big habitat restoration projects in southeast Arizona, and depending on rain, depending on how that habitat's coming back, is really going to determine scaled quail populations. So
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see. Have you shot those down there, Tyler?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We had scale quail get up with gambles last year. We shot both species on the same walk several times last year.
Nice.
Yeah. But we're in southeast Arizona, so if you find it, if you find and I've also shot scale quail in Kansas. The thing that you need to look for to find the scale quail compared to the gambles is when you're looking for the gambles, they're just everywhere in the desert. Like any place that there's like some sort of an old wash or whatever, you can find gambles quail. But to find the gamble or to find the scales, you need to find grass. Like there has to be grass on the landscape. And I know that that's what the Arizona Game and Fish Department is working toward, is trying to remove some of like the mesquite and some of those other invasive plants to try to put the grass back on the landscape. And wherever you find grass, you find scale quail in southeast Arizona.
Mesquite trees, and then also working with ranchers to set up these grazing systems to help manage these
Rotates.
in a way that's going to be conducive to wildlife. Antelope would be another one. They've got antelope down there as well that they're helping manage with the quail. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Mesquite suck, just by the way. They're the only plant I've ever seen that actually can throw a thorn through a sole of a Merrill hiking boot, like through it. They're gnarly.
I don't go there.
You are such a puss. Like it is terrible. You can't talk about this until you've been there, because when you go to Burns Quail,
Tyler, I've smashed my finger. Every one of my fingernails has been removed. I don't need.
Yes. Really?
9 of them. Yeah, from smashing them at jobs with steel and beams and hammers.
Is there a secret to growing them back?
Well, God does that.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, let's just say that I've only lost 9 of my nails. Am I really going to think that other one's not going to hurt when I it? No, I don't hunt for inconvenience. I hunt for.
Burns quail are like hunting huns and rough grouse mixed. Yeah. They are the most fun thing you could ever do with your clothes on.
I've already swam naked.
On top of that, there are also no mesquite trees up in Burns Quail country. That's why I spend my time in the mountains. Also, why I'm going to the gym, because I was too fat to be in the mountains before. And I still probably am. But they are so much fun. Like you can, like I hope that like what does everybody say that like way down south? If you don't agree with somebody, God bless. Like that's how I feel about the desert quail people. God bless you. Go and do what you want to do. I'll be up there at like 6,000 feet.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. That's it. That's exactly it. Yes.
What are we watching, Dad?
What do we got, Nick?
This is Wisconsin sharptail cover right there.
Wisconsin or Minnesota?
Wisconsin.
Wow.
Hey.
I had a permit for that area.
There they go. Did you really?
A couple years ago that I wasn't able to get over there and use, and I'm kind of kicking myself now.
I was curious. Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Willows?
Say that again.
Those are willows, right?
No, no. It's like it's a lot of scrubby oak and young aspen, and then some native stuff. Like they use fire to manage it. It's an unusually open area in. Basically a sea of forest, as you guys know. I mean, it's northwest Wisconsin. You can hear the slow motion. Whoa!
I was just gonna say, does anybody hear the whoa?
Yeah, there was two whoas and a finger on the button, and Hartley stopped.
I got to share a story with you. We should probably try to get Lance on sometime. Lance is a hoot.
Lance Burnham.
Lance Burnham and John McNeil and I and Doc Lick up in Traverse City went to Ontario to hunt sharptails. And Lance found this article in a little rag magazine. It was called Timberdoodle Lodge in Ontario. And it said, come hunt sharptails. And we're like, really? So we're thinking of Ontario as like northern Minnesota. Lakes, fir trees. Lakes, fir trees. Well, they had an enormous burn up there. I don't know when it was. Well, I mean, I know when I was there. It was 20 years ago. But they had an enormous burn, and we got up there based on a little intel. And I don't know where the first sharptail came from to get there. This place was covered in sharptails, and it looked like you should be hunting roof grouse.
Yeah.
Not stem density,
Sure.
But you're seeing popple slashings and, fir trees. But tipped over burnt trees, that kind of thin cover, that's what made me think of it. This green lush, I don't know what the hell it is growing. And these things were coming out of the grass and it was like a shooting gallery. 5 birds a day was the limit.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
And we limited it every day.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard you tell that story on an episode one time. I think I was actually, how you guys remember the time and place where you're listening to something? I think I was snow blowing my mother-in-law's driveway listening to Ron.
It was probably early on in my podcast career because I think I interviewed John and Lance like episode 5 or something. Yeah.
Nick, do you want to know what I remember about that episode that Ron did?
What's that?
The fact that one of their dogs farted so bad they had to end the episode and start a second one.
Yes.
I had to pull my damn truck over because I was laughing so hard.
That was a griffin. That was a griffin.
Named Hagar, I think. Yeah, if I remember right.
Griffins are.
Yeah, Sharpies are an adaptable bird. I mean, that's a native grouse species. They can exist in a lot of places.
Michigan had a lot of sharp tails and prairie chickens back in the day, in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
It sounds weird, but I mean, they leveled the state of trees, and the grass grew back first. Now, I don't know if somebody brought them here, or they took a train from Boise. I don't know how they got here, but I got this old state oil map. Tyler might have seen it. It's on the wall in Beard Mountain. It's like back in the day before you kids were born, when we would go somewhere, you go to a gas station to get a map. The map opened and opened and it opened and opened and opened, right? And to cover the map would be like Shell Oil or Standard Oil, or we didn't have BP back then. And this one was a Michigan map, and it was a Michigan map of the game populations: bear, deer, turkey. I don't even know if turkey, but all up the eastern side of Michigan, which was logged earlier, was sharptail and prairie chickens.
Prairie chickens. That's great.
Yeah. It's amazing, and we're coming back.
Yeah. Well, Jared, I was curious about that because now I'm obviously intrigued by the Wisconsin sharptail season, and I know right now it's not in a place where it would be realistic. But I never knew if you could do it as a non-resident. But it sounds like you drew a permit at one time.
Yep. You had to apply. I don't know if they switched it since then. It's been a couple years. I think that was like 20. I would say that was like maybe like 2015, the fall of, or 2016. I applied with a couple guys from our office, but I think they shut down the season.
They vote on it every year, and at least the last 2 or 3, it's been canceled. Yeah.
That's a unique place. I know you train there, and I know St. Pierre goes down there.
Bob's been there.
Yep.
Nick, have you or Jared ever put in for the prairie chicken permits in western Minnesota?
I have not, but I was thinking about doing it this year because the deadline is not passed yet.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I sent this video to Doug. This is the guy Nate who's up here. This is just this morning, basically in my backyard, and he hasn't pushed play yet or enhanced the but this is
enhance.
Enhance.
I'm going to pump you up.
I don't know what's going on with that, but
enhance your internet connection, Doug.
There it goes.
There was I think there was 7.
Is it not playing for you guys?
It's playing,
now
but
it
it's very choppy. Yeah, it started over again.
Please hold.
Somebody was very concerned about you, Doug, by the way. Sean, I think.
Stuart was also very concerned.
Stuart, yeah.
Jared, have you drawn a tag for the prairie chicken stuff?
I haven't. I actually haven't applied for it. I've hunted prairie chickens and harvested a few. The meat, the taste of it just doesn't agree with me all that much.
Okay.
And because of that, I
I've just chosen, I guess, not to put in a tag for that. But I know like our editor and Anthony Houks, I think a lot of you guys know, my former coworker who works for Minnesota DNR now. They applied a couple years ago and went up there and got their 2 birds. And there's actually a few people applying from our office this year. A few months ago, we just completed like a 950 acre acquisition up there right in the main prairie chicken range. Get the name of the property now, but it's
the
with
one from like the Pheasant Fest.
Yep. That's the public land.
Is it like the Cuomo or something?
Sorry, Cupido, which stands for prairie chicken. Okay. Scientific name. So the Cupido WMA just got turned over to the DNR, and that is a hunt area this year. So a couple of the guys are applying for it, and we're hoping if we can pull a couple tags to send a video guy with them and do an episode of something out there on a. It's a wild property, yeah. I mean, 950 acres with the other property that's there. I think it's well over 5,000. That's a lot of property to roam for prairie chicken. So,
when we came back from break, we kind of got off topic a little bit, and I'm 100% down with that. And we have not finished up on any of our stuff.
You're off topic. You can't handle the truth.
We are running out of time, and so we should probably buzz through we haven't hit Kansas yet at all. We haven't hit Nebraska. And then we should probably touch on quail in some of the other states as well.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. So let's start with Kansas. I've got that right in front of me. There was actually a news story this morning that I pulled a little bit from that talked about how southwest Kansas this year is looking really good for quail. There could be some strong pheasants around there too, but again, a lot of that had to do with moisture. There's places that got more rain than others. They've continued to see an increase in quail numbers. I think Kansas actually they had the largest quail harvest the last 2 years. Back in like 14 and 15 when it really started to fire up and we had precipitation down in Texas and Oklahoma. Kansas was the same way that year. I hunted down in the panhandle of Oklahoma with a group of writers that we did talking about Quail Forever projects down there. And whether it was public land or some private land one day too, between a couple different groups of us over 2.5 days, we moved 120 cubbies. Which probably never do that again. I mean, that was the most quail they had seen, since the 80s. And there were guys down like in the rolling plains of Texas and whatnot too that were pushing 50 cubbies a day.
I don't even know what I would do with that. Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, and they had a lot of bird dogs and turning them in and out, and
sure.
It was pretty nuts. But Kansas has come a long ways with their quail population. They went from nothing to a very large population. They're also managing for them, which is great. On some of the big wildlife management areas down there, we've also got habitat specialists that work on public lands specifically, upgrading them to make them the best they can be for pheasants and quail. But I think that southwest corner this year, as you get down kind of into the grasslands down in the southwest corner, that's
the thing about the southwest part of the state. That is the Cimarron National Grasslands. It's an enormous piece of public land down there that is it's wild, and you can shoot both scales and bobwhites down there. So and you can also shoot pheasants right there too. So don't sleep on that.
I got real bad news. I just bought that whole area.
You did? Did you do it on your phone?
Well, I retired. I sold the company, and I just bought Southwest Kansas. So
you must have a whole sponsorship program going on for the hunting dog.
I'd like to get I'd like to get in touch with some of these Pike Gears and all those other sponsors.
I'll get a hold of PF, and we're going to talk some habitat. But I bought it, so it's bought.
He bought Southwest Kansas and 2 of those shirts.
Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I was playing Monopoly, and I had Boardwalk and Park Place. I got all messed up.
We'd love to help you enroll that into a conservation movement.
That'd be good.
Right off, yeah.
But pheasant and quail. There's going to be some really good places this year in Kansas, like there always is, and there's going to be some really crappy places. And the weather is going to determine a lot of that.
I'm gonna have to call you because me and Ron talked about this. Every time I go to Kansas, I just get my ass kicked. It's terrible. And I've never had what I would consider to be a really good hunt in Kansas. I've had some mediocre hunts, and I've gotten my ass completely kicked in Kansas, but I've never had a really good one. But I have hunted the southwest part of the state, and I've shot some scale quail down there and some bobwhites down there towards the Cimarron, and I've also shot pheasants down there. And every time I leave the state, I always, as I'm leaving, I'm very happy to be leaving. And when I get close to the South Dakota border, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't so bad. So.
I've never actually hunted the grasslands down there. I've been more up near Norton, Kansas, kind of up in the northwest corner, and that's been really good. And then down, over in the southwest Nebraska, which always seems to be pretty decent. So, yeah, it's a cool state as far as a walk-in hunting program. They have basically the model for the country.
We are fantastic.
They do.
Yeah.
Hey, what is this, Doug? Is this Detroit?
I think he's muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, you just sorting through. He's got a ton of videos.
Is
here
this
to
Detroit?
send me.
For those of you guys wondering,
Yeah.
Doug's been drunk since 3:30, so
He's out of control this week. I just want to apologize to all the viewers. I mean, he's in and out.
I can't get my shit together.
His internet connection is not
no
enhanced.
way. That is so bonkers.
Pheasants flying over railroad tracks and
God, that's so weird.
Rooster.
When I was a kid in Chicago, you heard me talk.
I could have killed that bird right there. And see, that's the thing about Detroit. Nobody would have heard the gunshot, right? I mean,
You would have took a shot at it for sure.
yeah.
But when I was a kid in Chicago, you've heard me talk about trapping pheasants in the cemetery in the city limits of Chicago. And apparently that bird, I mean, you can bring it all the way from China and it does good here. Why wouldn't it do good there? All they need is some spots to raise a chick.
It's just weird.
Native habitat.
It's really cool. But I don't know if PF can come up with some sort of an urban hunting program or not. But if they can, man, I'll shoot a pheasant there.
Like I said earlier, man, they've reached out to us in kind of inner city Detroit to try to do some habitat work with them. So we're still looking into it, but you might see a story in the future on it. I think it would be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
My internet's stuck tonight. There we go.
Ooh, nice flush.
Nice rooster right
flush.
there.
Take it, Ronnie!
Ron would have shot the tail feathers right off that bird.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I didn't get much information on Nebraska. Typically, that southwest corner is usually the best. I'm not sure who on this podcast has hunted Nebraska or maybe that southwest corner, but I've never had a bad hunt down there.
Down around McCook. McCook is a pretty good, like right around that area. I've hunted down there a couple times. Yep. It's been pretty decent.
McCook, Arapahoe, all the way over to the border, down to kind of towards Beaver City, Nebraska. There's just some really woolly stuff down there that they produce a lot of pheasants. But and quail. We shot plenty of quail. We went down there for Rooster Road Trip a couple years ago, which was great. I did talk to one of our staff members, Colby Kerber, who's our hunting heritage program manager, and works with a lot with getting new people outside. And he kind of lives over central western edge of Nebraska, and said that the weather's been really good. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to do their roadside counts. What those come out to be. Nebraska can still kick out a lot of birds in a given year.
For sure.
They've still got the to do it.
You got South Dakota up here. You got Kansas down here. Nebraska's spot in between it. There's no reason, if everything keeps going the way it's going, between CRP and pollinators.
Right.
I mean,
I'm
excited. I want to pack a bag right now.
I think there's a lot of people that are getting geared up to go hunt the Sandhills region too, up there for prairie grouse and stuff. And I can tell you firsthand, I went and did a mule deer hunt last year
around like September 19th, my wife's birthday. I'll never forget that date. And we went up there and hunted around Valentine, kind of around the Merritt Reservoir. And I was shocked with we ran into broods of quail. We ran into pheasants that would alert the large mule deer bucks of our presence when we flushed them, and then up on top of these hills, kind of around the reservoir, there was quite a bit of Sharpies. So I think there's going to be some good things there.
They have sharp-tails.
It was good.
They have sharp-tails and prairie chickens there in those, right there in those hills as well.
Yeah.
And every time I've hunted Nebraska, I've actually been pleasantly surprised. There's not quite as much hunting pressure there as there is in Kansas. I don't know why. It just gets overlooked for some reason. But I looked on the Nebraska website. I didn't see anything about a 14-day quarantine for this coming upland season.
Oh, cool.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but if you open up a lot of the other game and fish websites, it'll have like a pop-up. And I looked at non-resident license fees. It didn't say anything about a 14-day quarantine. So I know they had it for turkeys. I was planning on going down there for turkeys, but I don't see anything for this coming.
In the FAQ, it looked like it was lifted July 1st.
Hey,
Okay.
we only got a few minutes, and I have not picked on Nick about his haircut or his lack of beard.
His hair's getting out of hand.
Nick, we need a
baby.
show.
That probably looks like my hair back when Jared and I were in high school.
Go Hounds! Go Hounds! He was a hockey player back in the day.
We gotta hit high school for these boys.
It's really nothing much to share, to be honest.
Well, I know, but I know you guys were like best buddies. You went to the same school.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could verify if Nick had a whisker in high school?
I definitely did not.
Right now,
Neither did I.
Nick is equal to about a 15-and-a-half-year-old growth of high school.
Yeah.
And Nick, the upside is by the time you're my age, you might have a full beard. You
It
don't
could be
know.
full. It could be full on. I have some breaking news here. Breaking news. Doug, can we leak what our episode's going to be next week?
Yeah, I think we should. And we could probably even tease the giveaway, the donation, maybe kind of a little bit. We haven't figured out how we're going to give it away. I think we're going to save that until next week, but you can definitely tease it if you want.
Okay, so next week we've got joining us are going to be two awesome guests. Amanda, I've never asked her how to pronounce her last name, but I always want to say Belanger. But Amanda Belanger, she's an artist. She's kind of like a mountain ops pro staffer. She's a grouse hunter. She's got her first English setter bird dog. I think she has a wine.
That's the only reason she's coming on is just because she has a setter.
Yeah.
And a wine rider.
Yeah. She's coming on, but she's also going to be joined by Hunter's Happy Hour viewer at times, Bailey Peterson, who is a friend of mine. She lives not far from me up here on the North Shore. She's a wildlife biologist, grouse hunter, bird dog handler, et cetera, et cetera. And Bailey likes to poke fun at my mustache or probably lack thereof. So here's a question for you guys. Is my mustache visible on screen?
Yeah,
Barely.
Barely.
It looks like you got a dirty lip.
Okay,
It's a shadow.
It's a shadow. So I promised Bailey that I'm not going to shave until next week, and then I'm going to shave everything, but I'll leave the mustache on just for when Bailey comes on next week. So there's the big tease.
I like it.
Let me tell you, it kind of looks like, as far as visibility goes, Nick, it's kind of like if you would have been near a muffler and it put a little smoke on your face, it kind of resembled a little soot.
Yeah. I'll take
because
that. Yeah.
When you're ready to grow one, you'll be ready to grow one.
Yep. Yeah. You can't force it.
This is not hard to figure out.
I see a lot of support in the comments.
Get up in the morning,
are standing with
look
me.
in the mirror,
We're
brush
standing
your teeth
united.
and go, should I shave?
Should we mute him? I haven't muted anybody tonight.
You muted Nick right
You
off.
did,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
You got
right.
me early. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one.
No stash left behind. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it.
Ron, they can see that you're not muted.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
When we come out with H3 apparel, the first one is just going to be a giant mustache in Nick's eyes.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah. We should get
Yeah,
actual.
you might
fake
want to change the
mustaches.
logo of the podcast for Project Upland Podcast. You could have like a Project Upland Podcast could have like a view of a silhouette of a person's head and a little
Yeah.
microphone and just a very faint mustache.
like
Little thin line.
Yeah.
4 lines.
I'm
going
going to send
across.
that over to
Yeah.
the graphic designer immediately. I'm going to send that idea over.
But someday.
So also, like, this isn't a tease at all, but there's going to be a lot of all these guys up here in the next, like, coming up very soon. Ron, I think you're going to be up here in like 2 weeks, something like that, with Justin McGrail.
Are you guys going to go live together?
I would assume so, probably.
Gotta do it.
Do it out here in the bar somehow. We'll figure it out if I have to be inside or whatever. Whatever, so we don't have noise problems. And then Nick, you're gonna be out here, I think, like the 14th, 15th of September for Sharp Tails as
Right
well.
around that time. Yep.
And then
Can't
Doug's going to be up sometime early October. So there's going to be a lot of, like, I don't know, like if me and Ron will just like push the laptop way back together and he'll sit on my left knee and I'll work him like a puppet or what exactly we'll do. But there's going to be a lot of really, really crazy stuff going on coming up here in the next couple of months because, it's almost hunting season and I don't think there's anybody more excited than we are.
No.
Nope.
Except all the people that listen.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're that excited. I think they just listen because they're alcoholics.
I think one point I want to make is like whether you're a veteran bird hunter or you're just a novice and getting into it this year. I honestly believe the roadside counts aren't out yet, but based on what I'm seeing on the landscape and hearing on the landscape from chapters, biologists, volunteers, you picked a pretty good year to start. So.
I think that too.
Yeah, I hope people get out. One thing I want to point out too is like when you guys are whoever listeners, when you're out in the field, COVID is still a thing whether you believe it or not. So make sure you're practicing. We got a hashtag right now called Responsible Recreation. Just make sure you're following all the guidelines, trying to keep socially distant, and there's no better way than following a bird dog through grassland. So
if Rusty gives me COVID-19, I'm going to be pretty pissed. I'm telling you right now. I keep on trying to tell him to wear a mask, but he drinks a lot, and he's not very responsible about social distancing. He sniffs butts, and I don't know where you get COVID from, but I think that he may have it.
Yeah, that's possible. Anything's possible.
I think so.
Jared, obviously everything going on right now, things are somewhat uncertain, but do you have any big upland trips planned this fall?
I'm putting on a small media hunt that's going to be socially distanced for federal at the beginning of October. Basically, they've got new sub gauge shells that are 16 and
28. Yep.
In Prairie Storm, and we're gonna take a look at those. I've got what else do I have? I'm going back out to South Dakota in December with Sam Soholt.
I may meet you there.
Nice.
Public lands bus.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a really fun one. I always look forward to a late season hunt there. And in between all that, I don't know. I've been invited a few places, but I'm going to be focused on rough grouse and pheasant in Minnesota, and then kind of move outside of that. I like the deer hunt. Ron, that bear, that asshole we ran into that was out in the woods. I'm buying a bear tag to try to go get a black bear here at the beginning of September. But once bird season's hit, that's where I will be. That's where you can.
I've got a bear in my backyard you can come take if you have a hard time.
Yeah, he sent me pictures earlier today. It's a pretty good sized black bear.
That's good. That's good.
Well,
So-
it's good unless you're Doug's garbage cans, then it's not so
Or
good.
hummingbird feeders or corn feeders. Not that I feed with corn. Throwing that out there.
Jared and I were hunting around Hinckley, somewhere in that general area, and I just want to talk about this because it's going to be a little bit infomercial, but the PF properties that it's amazing. I told everybody I did not pay attention to this when I started hunting, but there's an area that's PF managed. It's got grouse and woodcock. It's got pheasants and prairie chickens. It's unbelievable. But Jared and I were hunting there last year, and Bravo goes on point, and we're both looking. What the hell? And we see this very dark black shape, and we're like, it's not a tree, and it was a black. Jared thought about getting his knife out and taking the pelt off this thing.
Nice. Just
It
go
was a-
straight as Davy Crockett on it.
It was a big black bear. Well, the dogs were pointing at it, and we're like, what the hell is this thing sleeping or what? And Ron,
And then I said, all right, one of us has got to go in and see.
yeah, it says use the business end of your shotgun and walk in there and see what it is. And it was dead. It had gotten shot and not recovered.
Oh wow.
We were both a little scared, weren't we? We were
Yeah.
both a little scared because we're like, what if this bear is just kind of pre-hibernating, just relaxing?
It's cold in Minnesota. You never know.
And I convinced Jared to walk in with his shotgun ready to go. And
It was big.
He's like, I think it's dead. I'm like, you think it's dead? How about poking it?
And you mentioned the PF properties. The last thing I'll say, because I know we're closing in on time here, is that at the beginning of this podcast, I mentioned that we're working on an online hunting map. It's going to start in Minnesota. We've done over 55,000 acres of land acquisition, thanks to chapters and members and people contributing just in the state of Minnesota alone, and over 203,000 throughout the nation. So we're going to be adding those all to a map that's coming out here pretty quick. But I hope people will take advantage of that. Check out the properties that have been managed and bought for and paid by Pheasants Forever dollars and membership dollars. And last thing I'll say is everything we've covered here on this podcast today, as far as what you can expect for upland hunting this year. We've got our prairie grouse primer that's coming out next week. It'll be on our website and Facebook page. Followed by mid-September, we're going to have our pheasant hunting forecast, which I really believe is the best pheasant hunting forecast in the nation for every state where you can find pheasants. Followed by the quail hunting forecast, which comes out at the beginning of October. So people can check those out. If you're not a member of our group or one of the other groups, the birds that you like to chase.
And what the hell is the matter with you?
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll say it for you, Jared.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So if you scroll back a little bit, I dropped the link a couple times throughout the episode. If you want to join Pheasant Forever, Quail Forever, you can just scroll back a little bit, click on the link. It'll take you right to the membership join up. And I would highly recommend you doing that. We are actually going to finish right on time today, which is pretty impressive. So Jerry, we want to thank you a lot for jumping on tonight. We hope
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
enjoyed it. What I want to have you do is make sure that you are giving us a thumbs up. So do it right now. We'll wait. Okay, do it right now. Okay. And make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. If you're watching us on the Project Upland YouTube channel, please jump over and check out the Hunter's Happy Hour. Subscribe and follow us there as well. And when we are all done and we hit the end button, what I would like you to throw in the comments is if we were to look at H3 gear, shirts, hats, decals, what would you guys be most interested in if we were to start looking at producing?
Koozies. Don't forget koozies.
Koozies, yeah, we could do koozies too. That might be fun. What would you like to see in some sort of H3 merch? So with that, anybody got any final words?
We still have to give away that dog trip T&B duel that Pete Fisher offered.
Yep.
So we have to figure out in the next week. We're going to figure out what we're going to do with that, and then there's going to be a really big announcement for a giveaway next week from one of our guests. It's going to be a really, really cool giveaway. So
You're not going to
next week. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up, and it's just going to be like this is like episode 1 of the actual season of the Hunters Happy Hour, because from now on, like shit's gonna get real. Like
Early
like,
goose season starts now.
That's
soon.
true.
It's coming.
our
It's
early
coming.
goose season starts in 4 days here in North Dakota.
Yeah.
And you guys know a lot of places that start September 1st. Ron's going to be here, and him and I are going to whack the shit out of some mourning doves right here in my yard, because there's about 80 or 90 feeding in my yard every morning. And so
Oh, boy.
Little Taffy's going to get her. Little Taffy's going to get. Well, she got a little dove hunting last year in Virginia, which was good. It was the doves were already kind of leaving, but she got some good retrieves. But I'm going to leave it up to Tyler to shoot, and I'm going to control Taffy because I don't want to lose her steadiness. I want her to doves, and we can do that last hour of the day.
Early in the morning and last hour of the day, but we'll take some videos and we'll throw them up here on the Hunters Happy Hour when we that Tuesday when we're doing this as well. But it's going to be fun. We got a lot of really fun stuff coming up. So.
Very cool. Well, I see that many of you didn't follow directions and are leaving your comments now. So I'm gonna ask that you wait till we finish the broadcast and then go ahead.
Well, that's the problem. They're all drunk. Nobody follows directions.
Happy hour.
When you no longer see this live, make sure you go in and add a comment. That way, it's super easy for us to go and find it. If you do it during the show, I'm not gonna go back and rewatch it and find it. So. With that, have a fantastic evening, and we will talk to you all later.
Thanks, Jared.
Later, guys.